Pray like this today. God has already entered the battle against those who attack you. There is something you have been feeling and you have not been able to explain it. The pressure, the tension, the sudden shift in people, in situations, in the atmosphere around you. It feels like something turned against you overnight. You try to stay calm, to stay faithful, to do the right thing, but deep inside there is a quiet question rising. Why is this happening to me? And what makes it heavier is this. You did not start this. You did not ask for this. Yet here you are, carrying the weight of something that feels bigger than you. It is not just one thing. It is the accumulation, the looks, the silence, the unexpected resistance, the emotional fatigue that keeps building day after day. If this is you, listen carefully, because what you are facing may not be random. And more importantly, you may not be as alone in this as it feels right now. There is a truth that most people never realize in moments like this. While you are trying to understand the battle, God has already seen it from the beginning to the end. While you are reacting, He has already positioned Himself. You are trying to catch up to something that heaven already anticipated. And today, something needs to shift inside you. Not your situation first, but your understanding. Because when your perspective changes, the weight begins to lift. When you see differently, you stop responding out of fear and start standing in something deeper. Stay with me, because what you are about to hear can change the way you carry this. It can change the way you pray. It can change the way you see what is happening around you, because this is not just about a battle. This is about realizing that you were never left alone in it. Some battles do not come with an invitation. They do not knock before entering your life. They do not give you time to prepare your emotions or organize your thoughts. They simply arrive. Quiet at first, almost unnoticeable, and then suddenly everything feels different. A conversation shifts in a way you did not expect. Someone you trusted begins to act distant. Opportunities that once felt certain start slipping away. There is a tension you cannot fully explain, but you feel it in your chest, in your thoughts, in the way you wake up already carrying something heavy. And what makes it more confusing is that you cannot trace where it began. You go back in your mind, searching for the moment things changed. You replay conversations, you analyze your actions, you question yourself. Did I do something wrong? Did I miss a sign? Could I have prevented this? But the truth is, not every battle begins with your mistake. Some battles begin without your permission, without your awareness, and without your control. And that is what makes them so exhausting, because you are trying to solve something you did not create. You are trying to fix something that did not start in your hands. There are moments in life where the resistance you feel is not a result of failure, but a reaction to movement. You are growing, shifting, stepping into something new, and suddenly there is opposition. Not always loud, not always obvious, but real enough to drain you. It feels personal. It feels targeted. It feels like something is working against you, even when you are trying to do everything right. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to carry the weight as if it is your responsibility to resolve it all. You try harder, you think more, you push yourself emotionally, mentally, even spiritually, trying to regain control. But control was never yours to begin with in this situation, and this is where many people break, not because the battle is too strong, but because they believe they have to fight it alone. Listen carefully. Just because you did not start this battle does not mean you are defenseless inside it. The moment this situation began, it did not catch God by surprise. Before it reached your awareness, it had already passed through His sight. Before it touched your life, it was already known by Him in full detail. You may feel like you were suddenly thrown into something you do not understand, but God was never caught off guard. There was no moment where He had to react quickly or figure out what to do next. He was already present, and that changes the meaning of what you are facing. Because if God is already aware, then this is not chaos. If he has already seen it, then this is not out of control. And if he is already present, then you are not standing in this alone, even if it feels that way. The weight you are carrying right now is not only coming from the battle itself, but from the belief that everything depends on you holding it together. But what if that is not true? What if, even now, in the middle of what feels confusing and unfair, God is already positioned in ways you cannot see? What if the battle you are trying to understand is already being handled at a level beyond your reach? This is where everything begins to shift. Because when you realize that the battle did not begin with you, you also begin to understand that the outcome does not depend entirely on you either. And maybe the exhaustion you feel is not because the battle is too big. Maybe it is because you have been carrying it as if it is yours to fight. When silence stretches longer than you expected, it begins to speak in its own way. Not with clarity, but with questions. You pray, but nothing seems to move. You wait, but nothing seems to change. And slowly, without even realizing it, a quiet thought begins to form inside you. Where is God in all of this? You do not say it out loud. You try to stay strong. You remind yourself to have faith. But deep inside, there is a tension between what you believe and what you feel. Because if God is with you, why does it feel like you are facing this alone? This is one of the hardest places to be. Not the battle itself, but the silence in the middle of it, the absence of clear answers, the lack of visible movement, the feeling that heaven is quiet while your life feels loud with pressure. And the danger of this moment is not the silence itself. It is what the silence tries to convince you of. It tries to make you believe that nothing is happening, that God is distant, that you have been left to figure this out on your own. It slowly pushes you toward discouragement, not through noise, but through absence. But what if the silence is not what it seems? What if the absence of visible action does not mean the absence of God's presence? There is something most people misunderstand about how God works in moments like this. He does not always move in ways that can be immediately seen or easily understood. His work is often deeper than what is visible, and his timing does not follow the urgency of your emotions. While you are looking for signs, he is establishing outcomes. While you are waiting for something to shift on the outside, he is already moving in places you cannot access. Silence, in your perspective, feels like inactivity. But in God's reality, silence can be a sign of strategy. Think about this. If everything God did was immediately visible, there would be no need for trust. If every answer came instantly, there would be no space for faith to grow. And yet, in these moments where you feel the least certain, something deeper is being formed inside you. Your dependence is being refined. Your trust is being stretched. Your awareness is being shifted away from what you see and into who God is. But that does not mean it is easy. Because you are still here, in the middle of something that feels unresolved. You are still carrying emotions that have not settled. You are still waking up to the same situation, wondering when it will finally change. And it is right here that you need to hold on to something stronger than your feelings. God's silence is not his absence. He has not stepped away from your situation. He has not lost interest in what you are going through. He has not ignored your prayers. Even now, while you are questioning, while you are waiting, while you are trying to stay steady, he is present, closer than your thoughts, more aware than your understanding, more active than your perception allows you to see. And here is where the shift begins to happen. Because if God is not absent, then something is happening beyond what you can measure. If he is still present, then this silence is not empty. It is filled with movements you have not yet seen, and that means what you are facing right now is not the full story. There is more happening than what is in front of you, and in the next moment you are going to begin to see that what feels hidden is not inactive. What you see is only a small part of what is actually happening. The conversations, the tension, the delays, the opposition, all of that feels real because it is what you can touch and measure. But there is another layer to your situation that your eyes cannot reach, and that is where some of the most important things are already taking place. You're trying to understand everything from the surface, but God is working beneath it. There are movements happening that are not visible, decisions being influenced, paths being redirected, protections being placed in ways you may never fully realize. And the reason it feels confusing is because you are only seeing one side of a much bigger picture. You see the moment, God sees the sequence, you see what is happening to you, God sees what is being prevented from reaching you. There are things that did not happen that you never noticed. There are words that were not spoken, doors that were quietly closed for your protection, outcomes that were shifted before they could harm you. And because you did not see them, you do not count them. But God does. This is where faith becomes something more than a concept. It becomes the ability to trust that even when you cannot trace what is happening, you are still being covered by something greater than your awareness. Right now, it may feel like everything is exposed, like you are vulnerable, like you are standing in the middle of something without defense. But what if that is not true? What if there are things standing between you and harm that you simply cannot see? What if the reason some situations feel delayed is not because things are falling apart, but because something is being arranged in your favor? You are measuring your reality by what is visible, but God is operating in what is invisible. And this is where many people lose their peace. Not because God is not working, but because they cannot see how He is working. They begin to assume that nothing is happening, when in fact the most important movements are taking place beyond their perception. There is a quiet protection that does not announce itself. There is a guidance that does not always explain itself. There is a covering that does not need your awareness to be effective. And you are inside of that, even now. You may not see the full picture, but that does not mean there is no plan. You may not understand the timing, but that does not mean there is no purpose. You may not feel secure, but that does not mean you are not being held. God is not limited to what you can perceive. While you are trying to make sense of what is in front of you, He is already handling things behind you, around you, and ahead of you. There are pieces moving into place that you will only understand later, moments from now, days from now, maybe even much longer. And when you finally see it, when things begin to connect, when what felt confusing starts to make sense, you will realize that you were never as exposed as you thought you were. You were being guided through something, not abandoned inside it. But here is the part that matters right now. Even knowing that something is happening behind the scenes, you still feel tired, because what you are carrying emotionally is still heavy. The pressure is still real. The situation has not fully changed yet. And that leads you into a question that goes deeper than understanding. Why does this feel so exhausting, even when you know you did nothing wrong? There is a kind of tiredness that sleep does not fix. You rest your body, but your mind keeps moving. You try to relax, but something inside you stays alert, as if it is waiting for the next problem, the next shift, the next unexpected moment. And you start to wonder why you feel this drained when you know you did not do anything to deserve it. That question matters more than you think, because when exhaustion comes from doing something wrong, at least it makes sense. You can trace it, you can correct it. But when you feel this level of emotional and spiritual fatigue without a clear cause, it creates a different kind of weight. One that is harder to process. You did your best. You stayed quiet when you could have reacted. You chose patience when it would have been easier to walk away. You tried to keep your heart right, your intentions clean, your actions aligned with what you believe is right. And still, here you are, feeling worn down. This is where many people begin to turn against themselves. They start questioning their worth, their decisions, even their faith. They begin to internalize a battle that did not originate within them. But this exhaustion is not proof of failure. It is often the result of sustained pressure without visible resolution. You have been carrying tension for longer than you expected. You have been holding your emotions in places where you felt you had to stay strong. You have been navigating something that does not give you clear answers or immediate relief. And over time, that builds. Not because you are weak, but because you are human. There is also something deeper happening here. When a situation is unjust, when it does not align with what is right or fair, it creates an internal conflict. You are not just dealing with what is happening externally. You are processing it internally, trying to reconcile how something that feels wrong is allowed to continue. That internal tension consumes energy. You think about it more than you want to. You replay moments. You imagine different outcomes. You carry conversations in your mind that never actually happen. And even when you try to move on, something pulls your attention back. This is not just physical tiredness. This is emotional weight combined with spiritual resistance. And the reason it feels so intense is because you have been trying to carry it in your own strength, not intentionally, not because you chose to, but because you felt like you had to. You felt responsible for holding everything together, for maintaining peace, for understanding what is happening, for protecting yourself from what might come next. But that is a burden you were never meant to carry alone. The exhaustion you feel is not only coming from what is happening to you, it is coming from how much you have been trying to manage within yourself. You have been holding tension, guarding your thoughts, controlling your reactions, trying to stay steady in something that keeps shifting. That is heavy. And here is where something needs to change. Because the moment you realize that not everything depends on you, the weight begins to shift. The moment you understand that you are not the one responsible for resolving every part of this, something inside you can finally start to release. You are not failing because you feel tired. You are tired because you have been fighting in ways you were never meant to. And what if the breakthrough you need is not more effort, but a different position? What if the answer is not pushing harder, but allowing God to take the place you have been trying to fill? Because there is a moment, and it is closer than you think, where everything begins to change. Not because the battle disappears instantly, but because you begin to see that God has already stepped into it. There is a moment in every battle that changes everything, and most people miss it because they are looking for something dramatic. They expect a sudden sign, a clear answer, an immediate resolution. But God does not always reveal His presence in ways that are loud or obvious. Sometimes the most powerful shift has already happened, and you are still waiting for it as if it has not. The truth is, God did not wait for things to get worse before stepping in. He did not arrive late to your situation. He was already there before the tension reached you, before the words were spoken, before the circumstances began to shift. You thought the battle started when you felt it. God was already present when it was forming. And this is where your perspective begins to change in a way that brings relief. Because if God entered your situation before it ever reached your awareness, then you are not catching His attention now. You already have it. There was no moment where He had to be informed. No point where He suddenly realized what was happening to you. Every detail, every movement, every hidden intention surrounding your situation has already been seen, already been understood, already been accounted for. You may feel like you are trying to get God involved, but God is not trying to catch up to your life. He is already ahead of it, and that means something important for you right now. It means that what you are experiencing is not unfolding outside of His awareness or His reach. There is no part of this that is out of His sight. There is no detail that has slipped past Him. Even the things that confuse you, even the things that feel unfair or unresolved, are not outside of His control. This does not mean you immediately understand everything. It does not mean you suddenly feel no pain. But it does mean that you are not standing in an unguarded place. God's presence in your situation is not reactive, it is intentional. Before the outcome unfolds, before the answers become clear, before the situation resolves in a way you can recognize, God has already positioned himself in ways that matter more than what you can see. He is not only aware of what is happening to you, he is actively involved in how it will end. And this is where something begins to settle inside you. Because if God is already in the middle of this, then the pressure you feel does not define the final outcome. If he has already stepped into your situation, then what looks uncertain to you is already known to him. You are not moving toward an unknown ending. You are moving through something that is already in God's hands, and this is the moment where fear begins to lose its hold, not because everything around you has changed yet, but because something inside you starts to realign. You stop seeing yourself as someone trying to survive a battle alone, and you begin to recognize that you are standing in a place where God is already present, already active, already working. You do not need to force his involvement. You need to become aware of it. And when that awareness settles in your heart, it changes how you respond. It changes how you think. It changes how you pray. Because now you are no longer asking God to come into your situation. You are learning how to stand in what he has already begun. There is a subtle shift that changes everything, and most people never experience it because they keep praying from the same place of fear. They pray as if everything depends on convincing God to act, as if he still needs to be informed, as if his movement begins only after their desperation reaches a certain level. But what if that is not how this works? What if prayer is not about getting God to enter the battle, but about aligning yourself with the fact that he is already in it? You have been praying from the pressure of what you feel, from the urgency of your emotions, from the need for things to change quickly, and there is nothing wrong with crying out to God. There is nothing wrong with being honest about your pain. But if your prayers are rooted in fear, they will keep you focused on the problem instead of the presence that is already with you. There is a different way to pray, not from anxiety, but from awareness, not from striving, but from surrender, not from the belief that you are trying to gain control, but from the understanding that control was never yours to begin with. When you begin to pray from this place, something shifts inside you. Your words change, your posture changes, your thoughts begin to settle. You stop repeating the same cycle of asking, worrying, and questioning, and you begin to stand in something deeper. Instead of saying, God, please come into this situation, something in you begins to say, God, I recognize that you are already here. Instead of saying, God, do something, you begin to say, God, I trust what you are already doing. This is not passive. This is not giving up. This is alignment. It is choosing to place your faith not in what you see, but in who God is and where he already stands in your situation. And when you pray like this, peace begins to enter in a way that does not depend on immediate results. You are no longer waiting for external confirmation to feel secure. You begin to experience a steadiness that comes from knowing that God is not distant, not delayed, not uninvolved. He is already present, and that presence becomes the foundation of your prayer. You stop trying to fight every thought that comes against you. You stop trying to fix every detail. You stop trying to carry what was never assigned to you, and instead, you begin to release. Not once, but continually. You release the need to understand everything. You release the pressure to control outcomes. You release the fear that something might go wrong beyond repair. And in that release, something powerful happens. You make space for peace to settle, space for clarity to come, space for God's presence to become more real to you than the situation itself. This is where prayer becomes more than words. It becomes a position, a place where you stand, not in fear of what is happening, but in trust of what God has already begun. And from this place, something inside you becomes steady. Not because the battle has ended yet, but because you no longer see yourself as the one responsible for fighting it. You are no longer praying to survive. You are praying from a place of quiet confidence, knowing that God is already ahead of you, already involved, already working in ways you cannot fully see. And when you reach this place, something else begins to unfold naturally. You stop fighting like everything depends on you. There comes a point where you realize something has to change, not around you, but within you. You cannot keep carrying the same weight, thinking the same thoughts, reacting the same way, and expect to feel peace. The battle may still be there, the situation may not have fully resolved, but something inside you begins to recognize that you were never meant to hold all of this on your own. You have been fighting in ways that felt necessary. You tried to stay alert, to protect yourself, to anticipate what might happen next. You held on to control because it felt like the only way to stay safe. But all it did was make you tired. And now, something is shifting. Not because everything is suddenly easy, but because you are starting to see that you are not the one responsible for carrying this anymore. The pressure to defend yourself, to prove your point, to fix every detail, to understand every movement, it begins to loosen its grip. Not because those things no longer matter, but because you are no longer placing yourself at the center of the battle. God is. And when that becomes real to you, not just something you say, but something you actually believe, your posture changes. You are no longer tense in the same way. You are no longer reacting to everything that moves around you. You begin to stand differently, calmer, more grounded, less driven by fear. You still care, you are still aware, but you are no longer consumed, because deep inside there is a quiet certainty forming, a recognition that you are being covered in ways you cannot always explain, that you are being defended in ways you cannot always see, that what is happening around you does not have the final authority over your life. And that changes how you move forward. You no longer feel the need to respond to everything. Some things you release without reaction. Some things you place in God's hands without trying to control the outcome. Some things you simply let go of, not because they do not matter, but because you trust that they are not yours to carry anymore. This is not weakness. This is trust taking form in your life. You are not stepping back because you are giving up. You are stepping back because you understand that God is stepping forward, and in that space, something begins to settle that you have not felt in a while. Peace, not the kind that depends on everything going right, but the kind that remains even when things are still uncertain. The kind that does not need constant reassurance. The kind that holds you steady when your emotions try to pull you back into fear. You begin to breathe differently, think differently, carry yourself differently, because now you know something that changes everything. You are not fighting this anymore. God is. And that does not mean you will never feel pressure again. It does not mean challenges will disappear instantly, but it does mean that you are no longer alone in it, no longer responsible for winning it, no longer required to hold it all together by yourself. You are covered. You are seen. You are being defended even now. And from this place, you can finally begin to rest, not because the battle is over, but because you know who is standing in it for you. There is something powerful happening right now, even if your situation has not fully changed yet. You may still see the same circumstances, feel the same pressure, face the same unanswered questions, but something inside you is no longer the same. You are not carrying this the way you were before. There was a time when everything felt like it depended on you. Your reactions, your strength, your ability to understand and control what was happening around you. And that weight was slowly draining you, taking your peace, stealing your rest, keeping your mind constantly active. But now there is a shift. You are beginning to see that you were never meant to fight this on your own, that the battle you stepped into was already seen, already known, and already entered by God before you even realized what was happening. And that truth changes how you stand, because now, even if the situation is still unfolding, you are no longer standing in fear of it. You are standing in awareness of who is with you in it. You are no longer trying to predict every outcome or prepare for every possibility. You are learning to trust what you cannot see. This is where real peace begins. Not when everything becomes clear, not when every answer arrives, but when your heart settles in the understanding that God is not distant from your life. He is present, active, and already involved in ways that go beyond your perception. You do not need to force clarity. You do not need to chase control. You do not need to carry what was never yours to hold. You are allowed to release it. Right now, in this moment, you can let go of the pressure to understand everything. You can let go of the need to fix everything. You can let go of the fear that something will fall apart if you stop holding it so tightly. Because God is not asking you to carry this, He is asking you to trust Him with it. And that trust is not just a thought, it is a decision. A quiet, intentional choice you make, even when your emotions try to pull you in another direction. You choose to believe that God is already ahead of you. You choose to believe that what is happening does not escape His control. You choose to believe that even now there is a protection over your life that you cannot fully see, but you can step into. And as you make that choice, something settles deeper within you. You begin to rest. Not because everything is resolved, but because you know that the outcome is not in your hands alone. You are not abandoned, you are not exposed, you are not fighting to survive something on your own. God has already stepped into this, and He is not stepping out. So take a breath, release what you have been holding, and allow yourself to stand in a truth that will carry you beyond this moment. You are not alone in this battle. You never were. There is one more thing your heart needs to settle into, and it is this. What you are facing does not have the authority to define your future. It may feel strong, it may feel persistent, it may feel overwhelming at times, but it is not greater than the God who is already standing in it with you. You have spent so much time focusing on what is happening around you that it began to shape how you feel within you. The pressure became louder than your peace. The uncertainty became stronger than your trust. And slowly, without noticing, the battle started to feel bigger than your faith. But that is not the truth. The truth is, God has never lost control of your situation. Not for a second, not in the beginning, not in the middle, and not now. Every detail that concerns you is still under His authority. Every movement, even the ones you do not understand, is still within His reach. And this is where your heart finds its anchor. Because if God is still in control, then nothing you are facing has the final word. Not the opinions of people, not the unexpected changes, not the delays, the misunderstandings, or the tension you have been feeling. None of it has the final say. God does. And when that becomes real to you, something settles in a way that is deeper than emotion. It becomes a quiet certainty that stays, even when everything around you still feels uncertain. You stop looking at your situation as something that is happening to you, and you begin to see it as something that is passing through God's hands before it ever reaches your life. You are not standing in something unfiltered. You are standing in something that God is already involved in. That means you are covered in ways you cannot always explain. That means there is a limit to what can touch you. That means what was meant to harm you does not have unrestricted access to your life. And even if the process is uncomfortable, even if the timing is not what you expected, even if you still have questions, you can stand in something stronger than all of that. You can stand in trust, not a forced trust, not a blind hope, but a grounded confidence that God is who He says He is, that He does not abandon what belongs to Him, that He does not overlook what matters to you, that He does not step back when things become difficult. He remains constant, present, faithful. And because of that, you can move forward differently. You do not need to carry fear into your next step. You do not need to let anxiety decide how you respond. You do not need to keep reliving the same thoughts that drain your strength. You can choose something else. You can choose to trust that God is already ahead of you, that He is already working in ways you cannot yet see, that He is already establishing what will come out of this. And as you hold on to that, your heart begins to settle into a deeper place of peace, not because everything has been explained, but because you know who is holding everything together, and that is enough. There is a peace that does not come from everything going right. It does not come from having all the answers, or from seeing every situation resolved exactly the way you hoped. It comes from knowing deep within you that no matter what happens, you are not outside of God's care. That is where you are now, not in a place where everything is finished, but in a place where something has already been secured. You may still be walking through this, still seeing parts of the situation unfold, still feeling moments of uncertainty, but you are no longer standing in it the same way. Because now you know that this battle did not catch God off guard. You know that His silence was never absence. You know that there are movements happening that you cannot see. You know that your exhaustion was never a sign of failure. You know that He has already stepped into this before you ever asked. And now you know that you are not the one who has to fight this. That truth changes how you breathe. It changes how you think when the pressure tries to return. It changes how you respond when your mind tries to pull you back into fear. Because even if those thoughts come, they no longer have the same power over you. You have something stronger now. You have awareness, and awareness brings peace. Not a fragile peace that disappears when something goes wrong, but a steady peace that remains because it is rooted in something unchanging. God is still with you. God is still ahead of you. God is still involved in every detail that concerns you, and because of that, you can release what you have been holding. You do not need to carry the outcome. You do not need to control the process. You do not need to defend yourself at every moment. You can rest right here, right now, even before everything resolves. You can allow your heart to settle, your thoughts to quiet, your spirit to breathe again, because the battle you thought was yours to fight is no longer in your hands. It never truly was. God has already stepped into it. He is already moving within it, and He is not stepping away. So as you move forward from this moment, carry this with you, not fear, not pressure, not the weight you have been holding. Carry this truth. You are not alone. You are not unprotected. You are not fighting anymore. God is. If this moment spoke to something deep inside you, do not ignore it. There are times when your heart recognizes truth before your mind fully understands it. And this is one of those moments. You felt the weight before this, the pressure, the confusion, the quiet fear of not knowing how things would unfold. But now something has shifted, not everything around you, but something within you. And that matters more than you realize, because what you carry inside you determines how you walk through what is in front of you. So right now, do not rush past this. Let this truth settle. God has already entered the battle, not as a distant observer, not as someone waiting to be invited, but as the one who was already present before anything reached you. That means you are not trying to get His attention. You already have it. You are not trying to bring Him into your situation. He is already there. And because of that, you can choose to live differently from this moment on. When the thoughts return, and they will, you remind yourself of what you now know. When the pressure tries to rise again, you do not respond the same way. When fear whispers that you are alone, you answer it with truth. God is already here. God is already working. God is already ahead of me. Let that become your quiet declaration. Not something you say once, but something you return to whenever your heart feels unsettled. And if this message reached you at the right moment, take a step of faith right now. Type in the comments, "God is fighting for me." Not as a habit, not as something automatic, but as a personal decision to align your heart with what is true. And stay connected to this space. Not because of a video, but because moments like this remind you of something your soul needs again and again. You are not walking through this alone. There is more ahead of you than what you are facing right now, and God is already there. There are no more topics to continue, because what needed to be said has already been placed in your heart. Now the question is not what comes next in words. It is what you will do with what you just received. You can return to the same thoughts, the same weight, the same way of carrying everything on your own. Or you can pause, even if just for a moment, and choose something different. Close your eyes for a second, take a slow breath, and acknowledge this truth in a personal way. God, you are already here. I do not need to understand everything to trust you. I release what I have been trying to control. I place this battle in your hands. Stay in that awareness. Do not rush out of it, because this is where peace becomes real. And if at any moment the pressure tries to return later today, do not fight it the same way you did before. Come back to this. Come back to this truth. God has already entered the battle, and He is still there.